The World's Fair in St. Louis. Covering about 2 square miles, the 1904 World's Fair contained dozens of palaces, attractions, exhibits, and concessions. Your first stop is the parking lot for the History Museum, and then enter this massive grand building, the Missouri History Museum, the Jefferson Memorial. Welcome to an incredible journey back in time to the 1904 World's Fair. This monumental event celebrated the centennial of the Louisiana Purchase and showcased innovation, culture, and the spirit of a nation. Celebrating the centennial of the Lewis and Clark Expedition instituted by President Thomas Jefferson. I have always been intrigued by the World's Fair and these amazing structures. I went to the World's Fair in New Orleans back in the 80s, and I just was too young to understand and appreciate where I was. But now I can look back and research these World's Fairs. What makes St. Louis unforgettable? Well, a lot of people have a lot to say. I said the 1904 World's Fair information. And Lewis and Clark, of course. Join me as we experience the 1904 World's Fair in a way that's never been done before. Travel across America with me. The fair was a showcase for the latest inventions, including the delicious ice cream cone, which made its debut here. I've heard iced tea too. And let's not forget the diverse cultural exhibits that introduce visitors to the rich tradition of many nations. From thrilling rides to unique foods and captivating performances, the 1904 World's Fair was a celebration of human achievement and creativity. I'll be highlighting its memorable attractions, such as the Palace of Electricity, the Ferris wheel, and the incredible lights that amazed visitors. In 1904, the world turned its attention to St. Louis. The planners of the 1904 World's Fair organized what was known as the Louisiana Purchase Exposition to commemorate the 1803 land deal that doubled the size of the United States. But the fair was so much more. It was an amusement park, a laboratory, a workplace, a stadium, and a place where America's imperial ambitions were laid bare. It was incredible. It's hard to believe. Wait till you see the pictures of these places. And where did they go? Why are they gone? What happened to them? Why did they take them down? I don't know that we'll ever know the real answers. But let's enjoy what we can see from our historical trip back. In the years since it closed, the fair has taken almost a mythic significance. Some celebrate the fair for how it changed the city and brought millions of people to St. Louis. Others decry it as a monument to colonialism. But we're not going to go on the negatives in this video. I want to show you the majesty, the splendor, the amazingness of this fair. The truth is there are two perspectives, but let me show you how grand this fair was. It was full of fun, and there were some crazy, creepy things that went on, but I'm not going to be covering that in this video. The 1904 World's Fair was larger than life. Its grounds were enormous, some 1,200 acres or about 2 square miles. The biggest palaces covered hundreds of thousands of square feet. Well-known performers and attractions set up shop in St. Louis to entertain the massive crowds. The 1 to 420 scale model of the 1904 World's Fair in the center of the gallery brings its enormity to life. Above the model, 120 images from the Missouri Historical Society's collection commemorate 120 years since the fair's opening, showing moments both wonderful and complex. I want to make this note. One of the things that I found that I didn't like about the exhibit was that it wasn't about the World's Fair. They had the posters and they had some significant things from the fair. But personally, I felt it was cluttered with these things that were commemorating the 120 years since the fair. They blocked the pictures and they made more of a point of what had happened since then. I wanted to know about the fair. Just wanted to tell you that part so when you visit the museum you'll understand. So let's return to the fair. Opening day. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition officially opened on April 30th, 1904. Some 237,000 people showed up that day to see a parade, attend a performance by famed musician John Philip Sousa, and hear speeches from fair leaders such as David R. Francis. At 1:04 p.m., fair officials received a planned telegram from President Theodore Roosevelt in Washington, D.C. Have I ever mentioned that he's my favorite? Or at least one of my favorites? Okay. Announcing that the fair was now open, Francis then turned a special key that flipped on the electricity throughout the fairgrounds. As the fair's fountains, lights, and machinery whirred to life, Francis declared, "Open ye gates, swing wide ye portals, enter in, ye sons of men, and behold the achievements of your race. Learn the lesson here tonight and gather from its inspiration to still greater achievements. The exposition is open." At the museum, they have the director's gavel made from a tree in Forest Park in 1902 and used by David R. Francis to open the 1904 World's Fair. They also have that gold master key and his director's badge that was made by Mermod and Jacquard Jewelry Company. Visitors use maps to find their way around and make the most of their time at the fair. Don't you just love when you go to a zoo or go to different museums and they hand you that brochure? It's a map and it shows you all the displays, and you might kind of go back and forth about who's going to carry the map and pay attention because it's sometimes a lot of work. There is a fabulous World's Fair authentic guide that you can find online that is fully detailed and gives so much explanation of the fair that I can't get to all the details, much less read that whole guide. So those of you who are interested in more information about the World's Fair, I want to recommend that one of the things that you look up is this World's Fair Authentic Guide. I'll be showing you some pictures and some information from that guide. During my research and looking through this guide, I thought this introduction was interesting. It is believed that the authentic guide will prove the most satisfactory medium whereby visitors may quickly grasp the scope of the wonderful exhibition of human progress unfolded at the World's Fair grounds. The other thing I was wondering is, who is David R. Francis? He was the mayor of St. Louis, the governor of Missouri, the secretary of the Interior, president of the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, and ambassador to Russia. David R. Francis played an important role in the political life of the state and nation for almost 40 years. Whoa, this guy was a mover and shaker. Here is President Francis breaking ground. The fair opened with a concert from John Philip Sousa's band and chorus in the Plaza of St. Louis. At left is the Palace of Manufactures, and in the background, at the right, is the Palace of Education. Look at these places. They are palaces. Aren't they amazing? Aren't they incredible? Where did they go? Going to the fair. On April 30th, 1904, the gates of the Louisiana Purchase Exposition opened for the first time. Over the next 7 months. So this thing lasted 7 months. I was wondering how long it lasted. Over the next 7 months, about 19 million people would go to the fair. For many of them, the experience was like a dream. They were awestruck by all there was to see and do. For others, such as those who were put on display in the fair's human zoos, it was more of a prison than a diversion. I guess that's part of that bad stuff that they were talking about. The World's Fair, its buildings, its attractions, its displays, its events, its souvenirs meant different things to different people. Now here are some stats. 197,000 people attended opening day. 6,000 performers on the pike, plus 1,500 animals. The temperature of the Missouri building was 70 degrees Fahrenheit, thanks to air conditioning. 3,500 seats in Festival Hall. 10,159 pipes in Festival Hall's organ. I'll be showing you the organ. 45,000 gallons of water pumped through the cascades per minute. 250 sculptures throughout the fairgrounds. And 276 national and international conventions held at the fair. The Olympics, 12 countries, 95 events, 651 athletes. They had a lot going on. And then there's the wheel. 3 million Ferris wheel tickets sold. 2,160 riders the Ferris wheel could hold at one time. What? Wait, I gotta read that again. The Ferris wheel could hold 2,160 riders at one time? Oh my. 80 couples were married on the Ferris wheel, and the height of the Ferris wheel was 264 feet and 0 inches. I can't wait to show you the flight cage. You can experience it for free at the St. Louis Zoo, which is also part of Forest Park, but you'll have to wait. But back to the fair as an amusement park. Let's get back to this Ferris wheel. For millions of fairgoers, the 1904 World's Fair was about one thing: fun! On the Pike, the fair's entertainment district, visitors could pay a few extra cents to ride rides, sample novelty foods, see captivating attractions, and do things that they had never dreamed of before. The Ferris wheel was located right next to the Lincoln Museum. At night, festival hall and the Cascades, the waterfall that flowed from it, were illuminated by 120,000 incandescent lights, wowing visitors. I bet so. It's wowing me just looking at these pictures. Many of these people had never seen electricity before. You know, that's really an interesting concept, that these people were living in homes without electricity, yet they could light up this entire property filled with palaces and waterways that looked like you were in Venice. Fairgoer Edmund Filbert recalled, as the lights were turned on for the first time, the people raised a hearty cheer, for it was a grand night indeed. I bet it was. In the guide, you'll find a list of all the sculptures on buildings and on the grounds. It's incredible. 250 of them. Where did the sculptures go? That would be an interesting thing to find out, don't you think? I also found this picture. It's this Hindenburg-looking thing. It's an airship. What's the deal with the airship? I'll get to that in a little while also. But the Cascade Gardens and Cascades, the crowning feature of the decorative scheme that has been employed to embellish the Exposition grounds, is the marvelous architectural composition known as the Cascade Gardens. It is in reality a great terrace that is joined to the side avenues of the Exposition by broad stairways and beautiful approaches adorned by statuary and flowers. It had to be incredible. There were restaurants and dining rooms, restrooms, of course, and electric elevators. The electrical illumination of the Exposition was installed by Henry Rustin, late chief engineer of the mechanical and electrical department of the Division of Works, and is the result of experience in lighting the grounds and buildings of the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo. Over 120,000 lamps, which I just mentioned, are used on the main picture, and about 80,000 lamps are employed by the concessionaires and exhibitors for decorating the interiors of their buildings and booths. The Cascades are subject to a special treatment by a profuse display of decorative light emanating from 20,000 globes, so arranged as to produce variations of color. They had this all figured out to look splendid, magnificent. What can you say? Look at these places. Incredible. I just can't get over it. I hope you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying telling you about it. This 1904 World's Fair was a pivotal moment in American history. It showcased innovation and culture from around the world, and many people came from all over the world to marvel at the latest inventions, art, and entertainment. In truth, the 1904 World's Fair was a game changer. It introduced us to new foods, new technologies, and new ways of thinking. Unfortunately, despite its importance, the fair has become a footnote in many history books. And that's why I wanted to do this video, just to let you know a little bit, just a glimpse about this amazing event. Can you imagine walking through the gates of this fair, surrounded by towering buildings and vibrant colors, and hit with the smell of exotic foods and sounds of laughter and music? It had to be a sensory overload experience that couldn't even be put into words. The Missouri State Building was one of the outstanding exhibits. I forgot to tell you this about the most iconic attraction at the fair. You know, that Ferris wheel? It towered over the entire event, which you can see in the photographs, providing breathtaking views of the surroundings. That's one of the things I love riding Ferris wheels for, is the view. The 1904 World's Fair was a whirlwind of excitement, innovation, and culture. It was an event that brought people together and inspired them to dream big, and that is its lasting legacy. A little bit about the Grand Court Organ. It was built for the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. The Wanamaker organ was designed by renowned organ architect George Ashdown Audsley, author of The Art of Organ Building. Well, he seems like the right guy to do it, don't you think? The driving force behind the project was Murray H. Harris, a superb organ builder, hailed as the father of organ building in the American West. Well, of course, so they had to bring in this fabulous organ. It came with a price tag of $105,000, and it was in Festival Hall. The heroic instrument had 5 manuals, 10,059 pipes, and it won the grand prize and 5 other medals at the fair, where it was played by Alexander Goulmont and virtually every other notable organist of the day. I don't even like the organ, but I would have loved to have heard that. Well, a pipe organ's a little bit different than an organ. Do you like the organ? Tell me in the comments below. I had mentioned earlier about these airships, so more intrigue enters the picture. The Francois Airship emerging from the Department of Transportation hangar. I have a question here. Do you remember seeing the Goodyear blimp flying over stadiums during football games or even in the skies above your hometown decades ago? I'm from Houston, and we saw the blimp all the time. Tell me about your experience with airships in the comments. Well, according to the guide, people arrived there by railroad, electric roads, different rail lines, but they didn't say anything about people getting there by these airships. I wonder if they did. This is what it said in the guide about aeronautics. The Exposition's offer of a prize of $150,000 for dirigible balloons has drawn attention to the airship contest to take place on the World's Fair contest. No doubt the sum of all the efforts of the past in the direction of solving the problem of aerial navigation will be exemplified at this exposition. So they had this contest there. Interesting. This is the Francois Airship. Would you ride on an airship? I would. I guess you could stroll into the transportation building and ask about all types of transportation that was emerging at that time frame. Look at this building. I just can't get over these buildings. I love architecture. Now, the flight cage. Look at these guys. They're building the flight cage. I've got to ask, are you subscribed to my channel yet? If not, could you please subscribe? Now to the flight cage. It's found at the St. Louis Zoo, the 1904 World's Fair flight cage in the Cypress Swamp. The flight cage served as a centerpiece for the creation of the St. Louis Zoo in 1913. Over the years, the aviary has become home to many kinds of birds, many exotic. Today it provides a habitat for native birds found in the swamps of Missouri. Following the fair, the Smithsonian planned to move the flight cage to the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. But the citizens of St. Louis rallied to keep the structure in Forest Park and were clearly successful. The 1904 World's Fair flight cage was built by the Smithsonian Institution for the Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis. At that time, it was the largest birdcage ever built, and it proved to be one of the most popular exhibits at the festival. It is also a structure worthy of merit. It remains one of the largest free flight aviaries in the world. We entered and walked around and enjoyed the sounds and the sights and just being in this historic flight cage. The 1904 World's Fair flight cage in the Cypress Swamp. The most fascinating aspect of the 1904 World's Fair is its lasting legacy on modern exhibitions and culture. Don't forget to like, comment, and share if you found this video informative. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, and if you'd like to visit St. Louis or explore it more, and if you want to learn more about historical events, be sure to check out my channel. I have over 300 videos posted about this great nation. May I recommend the video titled St. Louis Then and Now? Here's the link. Flip-flops on the ground. Unclassic road trip. About that ice cream, would like to tell you what happened. Or at least what they say happened. The story goes that an ice cream vendor ran out of dishes and turned to a nearby waffle vendor for help. The waffle vendor rolled up his waffles into cones and the ice cream cone was born. There you have it. I gotta ask, do you prefer waffle cones, a cup, or the sugar cones? I like all three.